Welcome back to the show, and I'm your host, Jennifer Fanning, and today we're diving into a topic that so many homeowners are quietly dealing with. Short sales, pre-foreclosures. People are Googling foreclosure prevention and distressed property solutions. If you've ever wondered, what is a short sale? How does a short sale work? Is a short sale better than a foreclosure? What happens to your credit after a short sale? Then this episode is for you. Today, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Tamela Staubs with Connect Homeowners, and she specializes in helping homeowners navigate difficult situations with compassion and strategy. Tamela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to help educate everyone on what's happened.
Absolutely. How do people get a hold of you? Let's get that out of the way at the very beginning here.
Excellent. So you can reach me. My website is connecthomeowners.com. You can reach me on the phone, 561. You can text that number, call that number. And if you Google my name, you will find, 20,000 places to find me. So I've been around for a long time. So any way
Awesome.
that you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to communicate.
Excellent. So Tamela, let's just jump right into this. What exactly is a short sale?
So the easiest way that I explain a short sale is it's selling the bank short, meaning that if you have a mortgage, and we're going to use a really silly, easy number, but let's say you have a mortgage of $100,000 and let's say the market has declined, maybe you've lost employment as an example, and you need to sell the property, but the market is telling you, and buyers are giving feedback that the property only has a value of $80,000. The bank would need to sell short, meaning that $20,000 difference. And then there's other fees involved as well, like it might be closing fees and things like that. But those are easy numbers to use. That 100,000 to 80,000, you would be selling the bank short. So it's a short sale.
Okay, so essentially, this is like an alternative to foreclosing on your property, correct?
Yes, there are a couple of things that sellers can do when they find themselves in this type of a position, maybe where they've gone behind on a payment or they're anticipating that they're going behind on a payment. They
Right.
can renegotiate with the bank. So they can do a hardship package with the bank, possibly renegotiate, and you can speak to that. They could do a short sale, or they could allow the bank to take back the property in a foreclosure.
Okay. So the people that are out there that are Googling, I'm behind on my house payments or getting ready to go behind on my house payments, that maybe a foreclosure isn't what they should, I guess just continue to not pay, making payments, and then the bank would foreclose. So this short sale gives them the opportunity to get out of their loan with less impact on their credit, right? Because that's how I see it when I see credit scores, or credit reports that have, like you said, that $20,000 short sale. So the $20,000 is on their credit saying that it's charged off, but it's not as bad of impact as if they had foreclosed on a home.
Yes, because what's the qualification? If someone is in foreclosure, how long does it take after that for a buyer, for a seller who now is a buyer to then requalify to buy a house if they do have a foreclosure? What's the
Yeah, it
timeline on
depends
that?
on the loan program. I would say 4 years is your safety zone. Some loan programs actually require 7 years. It just depends on what loan program you're trying to use. I've seen, I was able to perform one time that was only 2 years out of foreclosure, but they had worked really, really hard to do things to boost their credit. They had a ton of money to put down. So that made their odds of getting another home better than someone who didn't have a bunch of cash to put down, and it has to be post closing of the foreclosure. So sometimes, like I had one client that went into foreclosure in 2008 is when it started. It did not stop until 2018.
Mhm.
And he lived in the
That
house
is,
for like 10 years, rent free.
yeah, we're going to be seeing, I'm anticipating with
Hmm.
what I'm seeing presently, because I'm working with two clients right now at this moment that are working through short sales.
Wow.
So, and I, after 25 years being in this business,
Mhm.
I went through all the short sales back then. And a lot of people, the only thing that they understand about if they're searching on AI and they're asking AI, act as a homeowner that
Mhm.
is behind on payments
Mhm.
and give me a suggestion of what I might be able to do. And then something might pop up that says like foreclosure, short
Mhm.
sale, pre foreclosure, any of those words. I think there were some other words too that we may have found. What was the other word that was
Uh,
suggested as well?
well, short sale versus foreclosure. That was one of the things that I guess a lot of people search for. And then how to stop foreclosure, because a lot of people they end up in that situation and then they realize, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my house. And so they're searching how to stop foreclosures. I did want to ask you a question though. So you mentioned a hardship, that they would apply for a hardship. So,
Mhm.
what exactly does the bank consider a hardship? Is it just job loss? Like, what are the banks looking for when
So
you're
it
applying for this hardship?
could be a medical situation. Someone could have a medical bill, a medical
Mhm.
situation. As you can see behind, this is a great example, actually. Being here is a perfect example. So I'm here at the studio, one of the studios where I teach aerial yoga, and behind me you'll see some of the books and the different things that
Mhm.
that have to do with the studio. Well, the owner was in a situation where she was assisting someone and they came down on her arm and it tore her bicep. So
Oh
now all of a
boy.
sudden she's in a medical situation. And so you
Hmm.
can imagine the financial hardship that she's experiencing because
Hmm.
now all of the bills and the surgeries and all the different things that occur. And so it
Right.
might not impact someone in the very beginning, but
Hmm.
now 3 months, 6 months down the
Hmm.
line, if she can't work, she can't create an
Yeah.
income, she has medical bills piling up. So it could be a job loss, it could be a change in job, it could be a change in, it could be medical related, it could be, there's a lot of things actually that happen. Hardship is a very broad word that they
Right.
use.
That's what I was thinking too. I wasn't sure if then they had categories, you know what I'm saying, that people had to fit inside of, because hardship is a really broad word. And I suppose that there's all kinds of different hardships, that if you had some sort of paper trail or some sort of proof that that's really happening in your life. So walk us through then this short sale process. So people first of all need to know that they have some sort of hardship, that something is happening, that they're really struggling to make their mortgage payments. Now, when they start this process, do they actually need to be delinquent in their mortgage payment? No.
No,
Okay,
delinquency is not a requirement to
good.
negotiate with the bank. If you anticipate, the
Mm,
best time for someone to contact me,
mhm.
especially when they're interested in selling their property, is well before any of that happens because
Okay.
there may be some pathways that they could go. One of the things that I want to look for is, do you have equity in the property? Because if you have some equity in the property, you don't need to do a short sale.
And it makes it a lot easier because then they can actually walk away with a little bit of money to to put towards an apartment or something different.
And most people will go behind, most of the people that I have worked with over the
Mhm.
years, they'll go behind on their installment type payments, their credit cards, their
Yeah.
car payment,
Before the
they'll go
house.
behind on all of those, but
Yeah.
they'll still make
Before
their
the
house payment usually.
Yeah,
So
that's correct. And the other thing I'd like to say about missed house payments is once that happens, the bank starts adding all these additional fees. And so then it is really this snowball effect. And I see that on the other side when I see people that have had foreclosures where, people have been like, oh my gosh, like it was $50,000 fees that, was part of the reason the balance was that high for that foreclosure.
well, they're
Uh,
doing that right now with the transaction that I'm working with, actually. I
Oh,
did
are
not
they?
sell them the house. Yes, and I'm coming in to kinda, save the day, put on the cape, and sort of how can I help them?
Right.
And so a lot of people don't know the process, but the banks now, if you go behind on a payment, a lot of them are already folding up and including, if you still get paper, they're
Mhm.
including in your paper, in your envelope, a form that you can fill out to start telling them about your hardship, and they
Oh, wow.
offer different options. They
Okay.
can, so you could renegotiate with the bank, you could tack payments on the end, but the
Mhm.
best thing to do is contact me so that I can give you that guidance because I
Okay.
have an understanding after working with it for so many years of what all the paths could be. And
Okay.
it's nice to know what are my options
Mhm.
before someone says, all right, that's it. I'm not going to make payments. I'm going to be in my house for 6 months. Well, you might not be in your house for 6 months,
Right.
or maybe you could stay in your house for the next 5 years, like you said, or somebody who's in a house for
Mhm.
10 years. It's important to gather all the information ahead of time and work, very important, work with professionals that know what they're doing. Chat
100%.
GPT is great. I saw somebody the other day post that they sold their house without a realtor and, great. But that's like, I'm not going to go in and do surgery on my arm because Chat
Mm-mm.
GPT said that I could get a needle and thread.
Right. 100%. So I'm the client. I think that need to sell my house. I'm having a hard time making my payment. I contact you. You come to my house. What do you do then from there? Like we're face to face, we're talking. I'm showing you my mortgage payment saying that I'm getting close to not being able to make it. What is it then? Walk me through kind of step by step what process you take then to getting that house sold and me onto something else.
So there's a form that they can fill out, and I actually have
Mhm,
the forms as well.
mhm,
I've already created the form, and the bank sometimes will supply it. That
mhm.
allows me the opportunity to speak to the bank on your behalf as well.
Oh, so the
That is
client doesn't have to.
so the client can, if they want to, they can stay
Mhm,
involved. They can give me access to be able to speak to the bank, that I can communicate with the
mhm,
bank via email, via text, via phone call, all the
mhm.
different avenues. And a lot of times that helps because now you have a professional in your court. You have a professional that's working with you that also understands the language that the bank has and also what documents to give them and how to help guide you and navigate this path. It's kind of, I mean, there is a roadmap to it in a
Mhm.
sense, and every bank has a little bit different nuance. But the first thing we would do is fill out that form. That form is
Okay.
going to allow me an opportunity to start speaking to your bank, ask them what they need, and then they'll put me in the loop so I can give you some guidance. They
Awesome.
typically are going to ask you to fill out a form like the hardship package. You'll need
Mhm.
to provide your retirement, maybe, or you'll need to provide how much is in the bank or what
Okay.
you have so that they can look at the picture. Always remember, and you know this one,
Mhm.
always remember the person on the other side of the phone, it's not their house and it's
Right.
not their payment.
Mm,
So they're only looking at papers.
correct. And they only know what you tell them.
Yeah. So if we don't provide them, here's what
Mhm,
happened to me. And sometimes we can write a letter. There's a lot of things
mhm.
that we can do. But that first step is I've come to the house. You've shown me the mortgage. We probably even ahead of time or right after I leave, we're going to do that document so that I have an opportunity to understand what's going on. Now, for some people, if that feels invasive, you're
Mhm,
welcome to handle it. You can just consult with me and I'll help
mhm.
guide you through what you could do. We can have just a conversation just to get things started,
Right.
but
Now
it really is best.
who decides what the price of the house is when it's time then? So you go through the process, you talk to the bank, the homeowner's going through that process. Who is it that decides at what price point the house is sold for? Is that you? Is that the bank? Like, how does that part work?
So it depends on where we are in the process. There's a little bit of a varying answer to that question. One of the first, let me go back to when short sales occurred. Thankfully, a long time
Hmm.
ago, when I was going through them, then we had what was called a seasoning period, and so we would put the house on the market for what you owe. There is a possibility that your house may sell for what the market is, and that covers your
Hmm.
mortgage. There could be some
Right.
negotiations to be able to get you to where you need to be to sell and not have a short sale or a foreclosure or anything like that on your credit. Having said that though, if we have the house on the market, so that's a negotiation, that's a conversation that we have using factual information from the multiple listing service. From I have 3 different ways that I do reports, and all of those different ways that I do reports on the property, I do a manual report as well because computers are great, and you could go on all of the chat systems and use
Hmm.
AI, and that's all great. But the human eye and being in the business for a long period of time, there's a lot of
Hmm.
things that I look at that those systems don't look at. And remember, an appraiser is going to ultimately come in, or a broker price opinion is going to come in and ultimately
Hmm.
determine what the house should really sell for. So we
Right.
want to be as close to that as we can. And they're not using an AI, they're actually a human being coming into the property. Having said all of that, the price on the property is based on what really is happening in the market at that time. Now, the
Okay.
bank may come back and the bank may have an adjustment to that price based on what is happening at that time. So it would just
Okay.
all depend on what's going on in the market at that time. But we do
Okay.
start typically with whatever the price is based on what's happening in the market at that time.
Okay. So then you just sell the home like a normal transaction, correct?
Yes, and that kind of brings us to the buy side of it as well, because
Hmm.
there's some things that we can touch on for buyers, because especially if you're working with someone who is
Hmm.
buying a property. So it's a traditional sale in that sense. I have to
Hmm.
have bank approval. The process takes longer. So it's very
Okay.
important for everyone to know that it is not a quick process. And the other thing is, there's a time frame that the bank will allow you to be behind on payments before they file foreclosure, and then you get into a pre-foreclosure, and then they file a lis pendens, and then you
Yeah.
go into a foreclosure. So
Right.
there's a bit of a process there.
And if you're trying to do a short sale, you're not wanting that Liz pendants filed, right? Like you're wanting to do this outside of a pre foreclosure or foreclosure process because that has the least amount of impact on your credit score, allows you to be able to buy something different sooner than, if you had all those other scenarios. So,
Also
people really,
less fees.
yeah, yeah, I never even thought about that, but you're right. They would be way less fees. And so I'm assuming that those fees are all tacked on to the loan and is either put on your credit report as not paid as part of the short sale, or that it would come out of the sale of the house if there was enough equity, right?
Yes, so I'm dealing with one now that I am very close to the sales price that would work so that we didn't have to do a short sale. Only
Nice.
approximately $30,000 difference right now, which is pretty close
Okay.
considering we're close to 400,000 on the property.
Right.
So it's in the bank's advantage, logically and rationally, to take the
Hmm.
short sale of this property. However, there are also guidelines that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and all of their determining factors that say that they have to follow a process. So there is a process that the bank has to follow. So we could be in the middle of a short sale and the bank could go ahead and file a lis pendant. So you are 1,000% correct. It's important,
Yeah.
way ahead. Exactly. That no right there, way ahead of the
Hmm.
time. But it's important too for buyers to know that if you're buying a foreclosure, a lot of people think I'm getting a short sale, I'm getting a foreclosure, I'm getting a deal. Not
Right.
necessarily. That does
Right.
not, those two
Agreed.
words are not the exact same. And it's not always the
Correct.
case, because sometimes the property could be stripped of all of its appliances. There could be
Hmm.
issues with the property that you're not aware of. There could be I had used to have this happen all the time. So people would go in and they would steal the metal out of the property and go sell it, because we were
Wow.
dealing with so many short sales and foreclosures. And then someone
Wow.
would buy the property and not know that they had to put all the plumbing pipes back inside the house.
That's so expensive.
So
So
it's
expensive.
important to work with a professional.
Yeah, I would agree. So, what would you say is the biggest myth about short sales? I mean, a lot of people haven't dealt with them, like you said, since like 2005, 2008 era. And so now we're in this whole new generation of potential short sales. So, what would you say the biggest myth is that kind of floats around out there?
From the buying side, I think, because I have a client right now who's super excited. She wants to buy a foreclosure or short sale. And the biggest myth is that there aren't any deals that are out there unless they have that word foreclosure, short sale, distress, all of these different words. Those words are not, it's a myth that I'm going to get the best deal because that's what I bought. There
Right.
are sellers out there right now that are more than willing to negotiate. They have equity in their property. They have room to move. Your closing is going to be smooth and easy,
Mhm.
and they could be a great deal as well. On the flip side, yes. And you've you've been in this business a long period of time. You've
Mhm.
seen this and you know that
Mhm.
that's not always the case.
If I'm a seller and I know that my house is on the internet, I really don't want all my friends to know that I'm doing a short sale, that I'm in financial hardships. So, does it have to be on the listing? How does that work?
It all depends. It depends on what phase you're in also, because you may not even be to a short sale yet. You may just need to sell the property. There are some ways that it can be blocked. Typically on our MLS system, the multiple listing service requires that we put in whether it's a short sale, a bank owned, or
Okay.
pre-foreclosure. There's a word and a mark that we check. We're going to
Okay.
start seeing more of them. And that's one of the things about consulting and having the conversation.
Mhm.
It's not something to be embarrassed about. It really isn't. There are a lot of people that have the economy affects a lot of people. A lot of people get into medical situations. It may not even be your medical situation. It could be a child's medical situation. It could be a
Mhm.
parent's medical situation. It could be, it doesn't even have to be medical. There are so many things that can happen to people, and it's normal. We're human and we're doing the best that we
Mhm.
can. And it's really important that if you're going to work through this, that you're working with someone who understands that you are a human. When you bought the property, you didn't plan on being in this situation.
Mhm.
I don't know of anyone that I've ever talked to and that I've ever guided and I've ever counseled with that they planned on being in this situation. This was not what they were planning. So, but
I
there are
agree.
some ways to not put it out there as a short sale or a foreclosure. I have a list of investors, and my list
Mhm.
of
Okay.
investors, I can send the property to. I've worked with them. They know what they're doing. So I can send the property to them first before I send the property to anyone else.
Oh, so kind of like a
And
soft
that would prevent
sale where it wouldn't even really be on the MLS or whatever. That would be a huge benefit to working with you. If I were in that situation, I feel like to try that, first, let you email some people, talk to a few people and see if we could get it sold that way, that would be kind of an awesome and
for a lot of people, they appreciate that. I have a transaction right now that I'm working with an investor that he's been absolutely fabulous. But now, mind you, if you try to put your house on the market by yourself and you get contacted by a bunch of investors, it's important to qualify them, correct, Jennifer?
100% because there's people that will tell you all kinds of things that are not, guess what? They're not true.
Unfortunately, a lot of people portray images that are not
Yes.
necessarily accurate, and
Hmm.
you experience that all the time. And that's why it's so
Yep.
important that people get pre-approved with you first before looking at any property.
Correct.
And you might even be able to tell them, hey, if you go for a short sale or a foreclosure, here's some of the things that you need to have in place. So
Yeah.
it's really important that people speak to us ahead of time. The earlier people talk
Right.
to us, the easier it is for us to guide them. Yeah.
100%. And, one thing that I always tell my buyers from the buyer side, if they're buying a short sale, is that we need a long contract, 90 days, 120 days, because it's not a normal just the seller saying yes to your offer and yes to it, but it's also people in a bank that are not in a hurry, that don't care what your timeline is, that has a pile of work, that have to go through and approve things before you can actually close.
And they have holidays off. We don't.
That is 100% true. Correct. Correct. I agree with that. Some people reach out to me not long ago and they were in trouble or starting to get in trouble with their mortgage because their taxes, the city added this giant ad valorem and their taxes went up significantly more than even the property appraiser's website said when they bought. Because every time that I help someone buy, I go out to the property appraiser's office and I do a what if scenario. So, what if they buy it at this amount? And yes, they'll be homesteaded. And it gives a pretty accurate calculation as to what the taxes will go up to in a year. Well, so we did that. But then what we didn't know was that there'd be this giant ad valorem on top of it. So, is that a good reason to short sale?
Possibly. It depends on the bank. I would not negate that. I would absolutely follow through with something like that. I mean,
Hmm.
their payment went up to more than what their income is. And again,
Correct.
even though they were even though it was spoken, it was a
Mhm.
conversation that was had, there was
Mhm.
no way to anticipate. There's
No.
another one that's coming up in St. Lucie County that a lot of people are not familiar with. There's something to do with the electricity because the electricity
Hmm.
is being used. There's so many homes. There's actually like 40,000. Most people don't know this unless they're really studying the market. And I had someone tell me the other day, this is why you're so good at what you do because I study it. I do
Mhm.
the mortgage calls, I study what's
Mhm.
happening in the area, and I have an understanding. There is an electric issue getting ready to come up, and a lot of people are going to
Mm.
receive some bills based on changes to the electricity because there's so many houses being built and they're pulling from the electricity and it's causing a problem. It's actually causing some outages.
Wow.
So a lot of people don't know that that's coming. And that
Wow.
could be a situation that could put a lot of people in a financial hardship. If
Yeah.
anything that's causing a financial hardship or if they're anticipating, information is always helpful.
Mhm.
And the interesting part about that is I might know it before any of the AI bots know about it.
That's right. That's exactly right. I agree 100%. So, what I'm hearing from you, Tamala, is people who are starting to feel the squeeze. They're starting to get worried that they're not going to make that payment, that they're going to destroy their credit, that they're going to be underwater in their mortgage, that they can't sell their house. What I'm hearing from you is that they should call you and have a consultation and see really what their options are, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, this video goes out all across the world, and it doesn't matter
Mhm.
what state you're in. We're here in Florida. But even
Yeah.
if you're in a different state, I can
Mhm.
consult, give you ideas of what's happening, and then refer you to
Mhm.
somebody that I might know in that state that is
Yeah.
actually qualified to be able to walk you through this process.
Yeah.
Not all agents nor all mortgage brokers are
Mm.
created equal.
Agreed.
Not all of them educate themselves. So
Agreed.
if you're anywhere, the best
Mhm.
decision when you're facing this is reach out. There is no judgment. There is no function in another world that there's no judgment.
Yeah.
We all end up in situations. I mean,
Mhm.
I've had my own life situations, my life experiences, and we all have
Mhm.
life experiences. So, and they
Agreed.
make us more able to guide.
Mhm.
You could be because of this, you might be able to help one of your friends or a family member
Yep.
because you now got educated and they don't have to go down that path because you found out what it was to go through. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, moral of the story is before you hit that foreclosure piece of paper, do not bury your head in the sand when things get tough. If you think things are tough, you need to reach out to Tamela Staubs. You need to have a conversation with her. You need to talk to your bank or allow Tamela to talk to your bank and figure out some sort of solution to either keep you in the home by modifying your loan or figuring out how to sell it for less than you actually owe, if that's what's happened in the market that you live in. And so this has been really good information, Tamala. Very good
But
information. I'm so glad that you help people in this capacity just because where do you go? And people, yes, we can Google. Yes, we have AI. Yes, we have all those things. However, we need someone in our corner to say, it's going to be okay. Let me take some of the burden from you. So I really appreciate that you're doing this for homeowners that have distressful or stressful situations. So thank you very much.
absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I hope that
Hmm.
this goes out to all kinds of people. I hope the
Hmm.
AI bots pick it up and share
Yeah.
it and Google shares it and all the search words so that people really do get the information. Because
Yeah.
it's very important. If you have a brand new agent that's never been through this before and they've never experienced it personally nor professionally, it's very hard to guide someone through a process that you're not familiar with in any way. So
I
it's great to be able to
100%
share
agree.
this.
100% agree. Well, thank you very much, Tamala. And remember, I'm Jennifer Fanning with Cross Country Mortgage. And this is Tamela Staubs that we heard from with Connect Homeowners. And we will see you next time on our show.